Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Analyst Hour. I am your host, Andrew Regan, joined by my co-host, Ryan Cadigan. And today in the studio, we have none other than Alex Pisacreta. Welcome, Alex. It's a pleasure to have you.
It's an honor. It's an honor. I listen almost every week. Try to get it in. So it's great to be here. It's awesome.
Yeah, we are so happy to have you, man, because if you do watch every week, you know that I praise your mentality and your winning ability, time in and time out. I admire your ability to close out games and to play very hard. So we're going to get into it. But first, to set a brief agenda, guys, as it always is, we're going to talk about last week's game. We're going to look a little bit ahead into the playoffs. Very exciting. And then we'll have a fun novelty segment that we can get into later on. But first, as I always do, Alex, I'm going to put you on the spot. I like to put captains on the spot, open their mind up a little bit, and learn from the best in the ASL. So my first question for you, Alex, when you first joined the league, Colin and Steven had already had their feet set. We view you guys as like the upper echelon of captains, so that's why I named those guys. When you first stepped into the league, one, what was your initial take of the skill set? And then two, how are you going to try to make a mark in competing with those guys?
Oh, it was awesome, man. I think I maybe subbed for Connor. Yeah, I subbed for Connor's team in the 2v2 league. I think maybe the year before I joined the league, and I got smoked. Like it was a bad game for me, and I just realized that you guys have a great thing going, and everyone tries their absolute butt off every single game, and it's something you can't really recreate. Like we say it in pickup, like when we just play pickup. Like I know Steve has said it multiple times. Like it's not like Sunday. Like it's just not. So it's awesome what you guys have created, and it's something that we love to do, and it's really awesome. So, and then the other question, I would say the best thing, or what was the other question?
How are you going to compete with like the Colin and the Stevens who have
Oh yeah,
already
of
known the
course,
competitive nature of the ASL?
of course. So yeah, I played with Colin and Steven growing up my whole life, but I think the best part about really competing with them in the ASL is you play against someone different every week. And it's not just playing against Colin and Steven, it's playing against everybody in the league, and it's playing against all the kids you grew up with. It's really just a great time. And I think the best part about it and like the hardest part about it is really I think me and Ryan both can attest to this, is the physical toll it takes on you. Like, especially being a captain, you really don't want to take yourself out, and it hurts to play a whole game. Like your body, you're wheezing after the game, and you can feel it the next day. So it's a lot of fun, man.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for the compliments. And you're right. Like, we don't give captains enough credit for playing the full, more often than not, 30 plus, 40 plus minute game. No questions asked. And Ryan can obviously attest to it during his captain days. One thing I want to ask you guys before we kind of hone in on Alex, um, it's no surprise that we hold Colin and Steven to this, upper echelon of guys. And then the next echelon, we hold, Alex and we hold Nick Resendez. And then we throw Jack Curtin into this mix. So I want to ask you guys, Alex, you can start, Ryan, follow up after him. Jack Curtin now has been he'll probably get my vote for MVP at the end of the season. And he was favored to win MVP before his injury last year. Keep that in mind. And now this is a hypothetical. Next year, let's say we have the same amount of guys back. Do we give Jack Curtin the second to last pick in the first round as opposed to Colin? I'm gonna let you decide, Alex.
I think that's a really, really tough question. I think they're both very, very different players. Colin, much more known for the three ball, much more smooth and, or not just smooth, but just like kind of uses his moves, uses his fakes a lot better. Curtin is much more of an athlete and just gets by people, and then when he gets to the rim, he's gonna jump higher than you. That's what his main thing is to do. And if you let him in the paint, he's gonna kill you. So I think that it's really hard to decide between the two, just based off Colin making it to the finals the last couple of years. I would still put Colin at 7. And just based off Colin's history, just with basketball in general, I think Colin might have a little bit better, higher IQ. I don't think it's by a lot, but I think Colin by a little bit. So I think that's where I would go. Still quick curtain at 6, call it a 7, and Steve at 8.
Okay.
Yeah, to follow up quick, I think Andrew, a lot of that could be dependent on how this playoff run goes because, like Alex just said, Collins' repetition of all of his finals appearances, still trying to get over that hump. Um, but you can't ignore what Curtin's done in the league, especially these last couple of years in the presence that he's made for himself. So I think that these playoff run is going to be indicative of a lot of what happens in the offseason. I think the commissioners need to talk about some stuff and how we go about picking teams, orders, stuff like that. So a lot on the line for this playoffs, not only for the captains, but for the league.
Okay, I'll take it. Yeah. Another question I kind of want to throw at you guys, and the reason I want to throw it right now at this moment is because I have two guys who have fell victim to the system we have in place that has in the past worked out very well. Michael and I pride ourselves on the way we do conferences, and meaning every other pick is a conference. So picks 1, 3, you get it.
Yep.
It has always worked out where the West and East are always in total 500. This year, that obviously wasn't the case, and you guys, being the Phantom members, sitting at 3 and 4 and eliminated, while we have a 3 and 4 team in the Western Conference who is the second seed. But my goal at the end of the day is to make this league as fun and as accessible and approachable for the average Joe. So I would like to pose it. I'll throw it to you, Ryan, and then Alex, you can follow up and disagree or agree. If you were in my position, would you kind of rely on Old Faithful and do the conferences like I always do? Can't kind of have to write off this season, or would you try to divvy up a different way and make conferences after teams are formed and kind of go off my hunch on how good a team is going to be?
Yeah, it's a good question. I can get the ball rolling. Obviously, like, it's no lie, Andrew. Like, we've been, a little upset at times wanting to make playoffs. We think we put together a run where if we were to be in now, I think we could be competitive at this point in the season. That being said, you're right. You guys have been consistent with that. A couple of notes I've made to myself is I would look at definitely after the drafts. I think we have enough analytics at this point in the league where you could put something together that's fair and just. But not only that, like also there's also trades made before the draft as well. So right, the draft order was set with the order that was made. And then, for example, like Alex traded up to 1. Like maybe if people who trade their draft positioning, if that were to affect it as well. So that's why I kind of said in my intro, I think there's some stuff to look at after the season. I think we should probably take a deeper look at it after playoffs are over. But yeah, I was definitely upset to get bounced, but obviously, can't be too mad at you guys. You've stayed consistent with it. That being said, I think this season really did show that there is changes that can be made.
So before I pass the mic to Alex, what is your final answer? Do I keep it the same, or do I divvy up the conferences based on a hunch after draft night?
Yeah, definitely not. Definitely don't keep it the same. I would do it after the draft. I know we think we've done it in the past, but I would even look at like no conferences, see maybe if there's something there that could work. They do that in the WNBA because there's not enough teams. There's stuff like that. Just a couple different options I think you guys should look at.
Okay. All right. Alex, what do you think?
Yeah, I think me and Ryan kind of talked about this the other day. Like, is there a way you could do it with you didn't have conferences? Like, it would make sense because you play every team, you only play every team once. So the idea of the conferences doesn't really make sense to me because you play every team once. There's no you play team twice, and you see everybody. So like, why would you pick a team from conferences when there's teams that are clearly like over the records? I think I don't know. It's weird because we also have people who don't show up, and it just stinks that a team like that also probably gets to go farther than we do. That sucks. I hate to throw shots at the Seabirds, but it just it kind of is what it is. But they also beat us, so like, what can you do? There's not much you can do. And I think the best way to go about it, if you want to keep the conferences, is to do it after the draft and kind of what Ryan said after the trades, and maybe get together like all the captains and just like kind of be like, hey, what do we think the fairest conferences are? Like, I think that might also be a great thing to do.
Yeah, so you bring up a good point in that, how big of a deal their conferences are if you only meet each other once every team. So what really is the point? And I think that's a good point to bring up. The reason we do that is because we figured, hey, we have an even amount of teams. Let's make a few weeks more important than
Mhm.
others. So obviously weeks 1, 2, and the last are the most important. However, I'll reveal Michael, myself, and Arvin have talked about downsizing the league in the sense of maybe only do 7 teams because we are scrambling for subs week after week with people moving away, just summer obligations. It would make everyone's lives easier if we were to only have 7 teams. So I'm definitely not opposed to that. Like I said, my goal with this league is to make it as, fun, fair, and accessible for everyone. So, I don't, I'm not married to having conferences. I'm not married to doing it the way we do. I'm always open for suggestions. This league at the end of the day isn't for myself. It's for everyone else. It's for 31 other guys. So I'm totally open to hear everything. And I think you guys make a good point. My only, or I guess I can speak for myself, Michael and Arvin, our only issue with downsizing it to 7 is just this hypothetical that like losing 2 or 3 guys that totally deserve a spot, but just like because we're so committed to 7 teams in this hypothetical that we can't give them one. But again, you guys see more than anyone, like we struggle with attendance week after week. So are we in the wrong to say, hey man, we know you want to play, but in years past you only show up 3 times in the regular season. Like, why don't you just sub? Like, I don't
Yeah.
think that's crazy to ask. And it saves them
Well,
$50.
totally. And I agree with you. And I'll say 2 things to that. One, I think the combination of kind of the fall off in attendance a little bit over the years, and then also we got to project a year from now, guys may be moving, guys may be getting jobs, out of town, wherever it may be. So that's all stuff you got to consider when accommodating that. And then the last thing I'll say is kind of to what we were talking about with, Curtin and Colin and who deserves that slot in not only in the draft, but that also determines the conferences as well. But like Alex, I think, has been in the same conference with Steve every season of his career, right? And like, I
That's just
think,
bad luck at that point. Yeah. No,
well,
I hear
it's
you.
And Connor.
well, it's also you have relatively the same order every year too, so you kind of know what the conference is going to be. So I think adding some variance to that would not only be more fair, but I think it would add a little bit more excitement to the league. Just guys, putting weight on certain captains and certain teams a little bit more.
No, I couldn't agree more. And it just sucks that like we have to set it in stone before the league even starts.
Yeah.
Because like we need guys to commit, we need people to pay the fee so we can start purchasing, the jerseys. So like I said, I'm open to it, and we just kind of have to take it on a season by season basis. But kind of back to putting Alex on in the spotlight here. Alex, your forte is driving, and it's really cool to see that you are a really competitive slasher, especially with your left hand, which is a skill set that we don't really see in the ASL. I say all the time, the ASL is a league that praises volume rather than efficiency, and you are incredibly efficient with your left hand when it comes to driving into the paint. So I'm going to ask you the same question that I asked Colin and Steven. Who is someone in the league that is, will stand across from you on the defensive end that you feel guards you best?
Definitely the person I played last week, Shurik. Like I think a lot of people have said that too. He's just a freak athlete. And he can move fast and he's big. He can jump higher than you. Like it's very hard to go by him. And then I think another one which is super underrated is Nick Germano. I think Nick Germano is a very good defender. I think he knows he's played me a lot. We played a lot in high school too, so he knows kind of a lot of my moves. So I think he is also a very good defender.
I respect it. Um, a wide, not criticism, but thing that we associate with you is that, hey, Alex Pisacreta, as good as he is not a shooter. I think maybe a few games ago, and maybe I said it on an analyst hour. By the end of week 4, you were the most efficient shooter in the entire league. I think you went into week 4 shooting like a 9 for 10 or something crazy from beyond the arc. I would just like to know what do you think when myself, actually, I don't really say it, but like other people say, hey, Alex is a great player, but he can't shoot or he's not a shooter.
Yeah, I mean, it's been my whole life. Like even my brother will say it to me every day of my life if we play basketball. So it happens, but like I continue to work at it, and like this last 2 years, I've really like just tried to like get to the rim and just literally sit there and try to form shoot, make sure my elbows in a little bit more. And I've tried to work on it my whole life, and this year's just gotten a little better. I've gotten a little lucky with a couple bank ones too. And really it just comes down to if you work hard at it, like sometimes things will get better. And that's basically what just has happened. And I think after this year, I think a lot of people will start to realize that I can kind of shoot it a little bit. I think that's going to help my game a little bit. So we'll see where it goes. And I think the real efficiency came from that one game where I hit like 4 threes in a row against the Black Bears. But so that was really, I think it was right after that game. That was week 4. So that
Yeah.
probably helps that. But I haven't shot that well since then. But definitely had a good week that week. So
But back to my original point, man, like if you shoot 3 for 12 beyond the arc, in terms of ASL, you're one of the more efficient shooters in the league. So, like I said, we reward volume rather than efficiency, and you demonstrated both from behind the arc this year. So honestly, like hats off to you. But we
And
did
honestly,
just
one more thing just to bring it in. Same thing. I think I talked about it earlier when we said we didn't talk about defenders, but Curtin's a really good defender. But if he has the 3-point ball going, like I think he is also just as good as Colin. Like it going back to that point, like it's same thing with me. I feel like I'm just as good if I have the 3 ball going. Not many people can stop me in this league. And same thing with Curtin. If Curtin has the 3-point ball going, I don't think anybody can stop him in this league. I think he's that good. I think if he has that going, he had us going against us. I think we lost 21-9 or something like that. He had 3 or 4 threes, and I couldn't guard him. Like it was that simple. So just to give it to Curtin, he's really really good. If the three's going, it's near impossible.
the really impressive thing about Curtin when it comes to driving that I have found is that he finishes with the ball as wide as it could be out, and he
Crazy,
can't
bro. It's
he
like
can't get a hit in
Kyrie-esque. It's
there.
insane.
And I asked him about it. I said, dude, like you are so hard to guard when it comes to, finishing. What is it? And he said, I just extended out, and that's just what I've had to learn from being smaller growing up is like you don't want to be blocked by going straight up. He has to go out, and he has mastered it. So I think it's a good question to pose. Where does Curtin stand up in terms of Colin, in terms of Steven, and whatever. We already talked about it, but we just concluded week 6. We are done with the regular season for 2024. We don't need to go through each game individually. We know the results. We now know the playoff stage is set. But Ryan, I do want to throw you this question, and Alex, you're gonna answer it as well. Now that the regular season is in the books,
Yep.
name me one team that either exceeded or fell flat of your expectations.
Yeah. I mean, I the easy answer for me is the Hoopers. I wasn't expecting them to be nearly as good as they were going to be. Curtin really carried them, and I guess I can leave it at that. I mean, obviously, I think we probably fell flat. I was really hoping and expecting that we'd make a playoff run. Whatever stuff happens, but to me, the easy answer is the Hoopers. And honestly, this might cause a little discourse, but I think the T-Birds fell flat a little bit this year for sure. I mean, you guys were a point away from being 3-4, getting the 1 seed, and like that. I mean, take the conference strength away from it. Like, I think we were just talking about how great Colin is. Like, we expect more from that team, especially with the T-Birds going 2-0 without Colin being there, really holding up that end of the bargain. You expect more from them. So T-Birds, I think, probably fell flat a little bit. Phantoms, I think we got hot a little too late. And Hoopers definitely exceeded my expectations.
Yeah. Alex, what do you think?
I think for exceeded expectations, I think the Sizzlers really. I think going into the year after we saw Connor and Schuerk last year, I know a lot of people thought they'd be really good, but AJ being on the court with them, they just have such good chemistry. I think there's a couple teams that have 3 really good players who know how to play with each other. I think it's them, and I think it's the Seabirds, which is crazy to say because they played like 2 games together. And I think they're kind of the team I say my expectations fell short. I thought they would be amazing. I thought they would win that conference because Nick Carter and Gergis are all 3, again, very capable players who know how to play basketball at a very high level. And I think that when it comes down to it, you need that. You need that IQ. And when you can just give the ball to Carter in the post and you have Gerges on one side and Resendez on the other, if Carter makes the right read, should be a bucket almost every time. So I think that's something that's really surprising that they were 2-5. I know their attendance wasn't great, but I expect them to make a very deep playoff run.
All right, thank you. Yeah, Ryan, you took my answer. I think the team that fell flat a little bit of expectations was definitely the T-Birds. Being 4-3 in the weaker conference is really not anything to celebrate. So, I don't really know what it is. I think you bring up a good point, us being 2-0 without Colin. Ian and I joke all the time. Colin's been on 2 vacations and we're in the trenches, making sure we get the deal done. But obviously I think Colin's aware of that, and I think Colin's a great competitor, and I think he's gonna come back with a chip on his shoulder and want to make a statement. I know he's watching this right now, biting his tongue, getting ready to get to work and make sure that his name isn't dragged through the mud. But yeah, I think 4-3 is a really ugly record, and it's unfortunate in terms of the Phantom, who I don't think you guys fell flat at all. 3-4 is a very common average record in the Andover Streetball League.
We're an
Especially,
above average team, Drew. We're an above average team.
sorry.
We should have been 4-3. The game, if we won that game against the Thunderbird, you guys, we
Yeah.
would have appealed to the league. There would be an appeal out that we would have to be the 1 seed for your conference. So
Yeah,
I
you
think
yeah, you would.
I think it's just that game was horrible. Me, Cadigan, and Dennis just stopped playing. Like
Lost sleep, bro. Lost
we
sleep.
were. There was one play where me and Cadigan both had a chance to rebound. Colin ran in between us and got it and scored, and we were just like,
Oh,
Yeah.
so
No, I
that
hear
that
you.
game that game was killer, and I'm still pissed about that game. But it comes down to it that we wouldn't have made the playoffs anyway, which is hilarious.
that
But
is crazy.
it was just crazy with a 4-3 record. But
Oh, that is crazy.
it's very funny.
And even if you guys lost, you still would have been the 1 seed.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You had the
Yes.
tiebreaker over Legion.
Yeah,
We
you're
would
right.
have the
Even if
same
we had
record, and you would be the
lost.
1 seed.
Yeah. So
That's
I
too
think
funny.
the West being a cupcake, uh, just an absolute Mickey Mouse conference is hilarious
It's a
because
funny joke.
it's
Enough with the conference talk, though. I'm over it.
Yeah, we're
I
done
know we
with this.
gotta
We're
we
done
gotta
with
bury it. Um,
this.
but yeah, that was for me. I think the T-Birds at 4-3 is a pretty ugly record, especially when we were praising that this is the best team Colin has ever assembled. But I think because of him being, we haven't really found our footing yet in terms of playing as a foursome, which I think we will. Obviously, I'll bet the house on our team, but I think that's really the answer. I don't think it goes any deeper than that. But let's look in the playoffs a little bit before we wrap up with the novelty segment. Obviously, the stage is set. We have the Sizzlers and the T-Birds. We're really not going to talk about them because they have the first round bye. We do have other matchups to worry about. So let's start in the East because this is definitely the more competitive conference. We have the Dogs taking on the Hoopers. Pissy, what's your take? Now remember, these are games to 15, best 2 out of 3 series. The Dogs, being the higher seed, will start with the ball. Games 1 and games 3, if necessary. No halftime. You have the floor. What's your take on the series?
It's going to be. I think this is going to be one of the better series we'll see all playoffs. I think that Steve is. He missed a lot of shots last week. I don't think he's missing that many next week or whatever it is. I think you guys have a bye. I think I saw that. So maybe the week after. But I think Steve will be absolutely ready for this game. And I think that it's going to be tough. I think Steve showed last week too. They did win that game, right? They won the game against
Yeah.
Curtin. Yep. So I think he showed last week that it's really hard to guard him inside. I don't think Campbell's a great matchup for him. I don't think Curtin's a great matchup for him. He's so big, he's so strong, and you gotta kind of live with the 3 ball. I think if you're Curtin, but you can't let him get hot because if he gets hot, it's over. So that's how quick those 15-point games can go. So I think I'm gonna go Dogs in 2 and 3. I'll go Dogs in 3. I think Curtin will get one, have a really good game, but I think it's going to come down to the role players, and I think Brawley's going to be there. There's no chance Brawley won't be there. So I think Brawley has a huge game, and he really did a great job this year. So I think he has a big game.
I want to, Andrew, just follow up real quick because I agree with him and I don't want to spend too much time on it. But One note, I think CJ has been filling that starting role great when Beraldi hasn't been around. And I was really high on CJ going into the draft. So I think he's be an asset for them too whenever they need a bigger body in there for certain matchup purposes throughout this playoff run. I have dogs in 3 because what Pissy just said is like, you saw it at the end of the Hoopers game, and that game had implications last week for both teams. They were both incentivized to win that for seeding purposes. So they really were trying to get that win. And you really, I mean, we've said it, time and time again, but Steve does have this mentality of he's going to, if he refuses to lose a game, he will his team to a win. That being said, Curtin has been playing a lot like an MVP. I said in our last podcast episode, Curtin had my vote. However, going into this week, seeing what I presume to be the top MVP candidates in Steve versus Curtin, and in the head to head, that could potentially sway my vote. So after seeing Steve beat Curtin and his team, I still may vote for Curtin, but I'm definitely unsure of who my vote's going to go to going into the end of season awards. But for now, I got dogs in 3, and then we can go down the rest of the games. But what do you think, real quick?
Yeah, I think you bring up really good points, both of you. So I'm going to echo both of you. I'm also going to submit a ticket for dogs in 3, and I also want to give CJ his flowers. One thing I really admire about CJ as a role player is that he silently cover his bases. He's not a guy who's going to be super vocal in the huddle. He's not really super vocal during the game, but he covers his bases and goes home. And I think that's really refreshing, especially when you're Steve, who Steve is the general of this army. He wants to have his hand in every single play. And CJ is a perfect guy where he doesn't necessarily need to worry about CJ being a liability. So Steven can focus on his things. So yeah, I think you bring up a really good point. But at the end of the day, it's Steve's world and we're all just living in it. I think this is going to be a dogs in 3. Curtin will definitely get one. One thing I want to say before we move on is I'm very curious to see the return of Mburu, because this brings 2 things. One, this is the return of a guy who Curtin hasn't played with, but also Curtin, has a sub or 2 every week that he hasn't played with before, and he still does very well. But this is a very, shot heavy guy. Curtin, very similar to Steven, very similar to Pisacreta, very similar to Colin, needs to be at the helm of this team. And I'm very curious to see if Mburu, who is known for being very trigger happy, which is not a critique, merely an observation, is his trigger happiness going to take away from Jack kind of orchestrating this entire team? That's something I'm going to keep an eye on. That's kind of a rhetorical question. But if you guys have a take, hop in. If not, we can hop over to the West, which is going to be the Legion taking on the Seabirds. Ryan, we're going to reverse the order. Who do you have in this series?
Yeah, well, I'll say this: like, we played the Legion and Seabirds back to back. We played the Seabirds in the first game of the doubleheader, and then Legion right after. Both exceeded my expectations and how I thought they were going to be. I knew the Seabirds at full health were going to be good. That's why I said to you jokingly, our -4.5 line was kind of crazy, because I don't think they'd won at the time, or maybe 1 win. Like, they were really wanting to win. I knew when we were in that position, when we were 0-2 or 0-3, like, we needed to will ourselves to a win. So Gergis got hot. We kind of were flat-footed, and that's just how that week worked out for them and for us. But I'll say this, dude, with how the Seabirds have been playing, obviously we didn't see Resendez this past week, but you got to think when all those guys are locked in, and then, like Pisacreta just said, an underrated defender in Germano off the bench, like, they're just as good of a team as any in that conference right now. And for right now, for matchup purposes, especially because the Legion are a little bit smaller, I know GK does a decent job on Carter. However, I like the Seabirds, and I think I'm going to take the Seabirds in a sweep.
Wow. Alex, what do you think?
I like that pick. I also am gonna take the Seabirds. I'll take them in 3. I think Louis and Costa will get one. We saw them. They played amazing against us. I think Costa had this one move where he would drive left and then he would spin back to his right hand. It would go in every time. It was a great move. He probably had 15 on us doing that. So I think he's a really good player. And if Louis gets going from the 3-point line, he's got a great midi. He knows what to do with the ball on the pick and roll. He knows what to do with the ball just passing wise. He's one of the better passers in the league. So I think it's going to be a tough game. I think the only issue is, like you said, Carter is just he's 6'6", 6'7". Like, and if you leave Gergis and Nick to go double team him, one of them's gonna shoot a three, and you gotta just hope they miss it. So I really think it's gonna be a tough game. So I'm probably going Seabirds in three.
It is so funny to talk so highly about the Seabirds, who were, we were not super high on them a few weeks ago, but I guess I'll be the minority. I think I'm going to take the Legion in three. They're coming off of a win against the Seabirds last week. Obviously, Nick wasn't there, so that's something you need to think about. But I really think the Seabirds did an incredible job cracking the code to sorry, I think the Legion did a really good job cracking the code of the Seabirds offense. They blew a 9-1 lead. The Seabirds blew a 9-1 lead against the Legion, and what did the Legion do? They did two things. They stepped up on Dan Gurris behind the arc, and then they packed the paint when Carter had the ball. I think if they stick to their guns, it's going to be very hard for the Seabirds to find their offensive footing, thus translating into 15 points. I think the Seabirds are good enough to put up 15 points in this series. Obviously, I wouldn't be surprised if they win. However, I think the Legion have found the right scheme, and I think they're going to really lean into it come playoff time. So I'm going to submit my vote for Legion in three. That kind of closes the analytics. Do you guys have anything else in terms of something you want to get out there before we move on?
Well, I don't know if we're doing what the novelties will entail. We're not gonna talk about what the next matchups would be then?
We're not. No.
Okay.
That would take content away from next week's episode.
That's true. What am I thinking? What am I thinking? All right.
Yeah, figure it
I'm
out,
good.
Caddy.
Yeah, that's tough.
One thing I do want to say, and I want to give you guys the mic as well about your own team. I don't want to end this episode or end this segment without saying that the Thunderbirds being a flop at 4-3. I don't want that to come across as a critique of Colin. If anything, I want to critique myself, Ian, and Ty, because without Colin, we played really freely. It was almost like a pressure was lifted off of our shoulders because now we're not taking shots away from the best guy on the team. If we could just take that mentality when we get back with Colin, I'm really not going to be worried. So I don't want this episode to be a critique of Colin, but rather a critique on us three to carry that same mentality when we get back with Colin. Do you guys want to take anything to say before we shut the door, or are you guys good? Maybe
Yeah,
a farewell.
I'll take a quick Phantom. Yeah, Phantom funeral. I think the year was three was good. I think we played great. The games we didn't play good, I didn't play defense. I stopped. I was gassed. I was just not physically up to it, and I think that's really what put us down bad. It was really that Gergis game where I literally just let him shoot every single time. I don't know what I was doing. It was the worst thing in the world. And then same with Costa. Costa put up like 15 on me. I'm like known for playing defense my whole like basketball career. Like that was kind of what I was known for, and I think I've gotten away from that in the ASL, and I need to get back to that. So I think that's one thing I'm pretty pissed off about, and I'm also just pissed that I brought Cadigan into the situation. I took him at one and put all this pressure on him, and then I had Pete and Dennis who were amazing. Like Pete, that last game, I want to give a huge shout out. He had, I don't know how many points he had. It might have been 7 or 8.
That was crazy.
Great.
MVP of the game.
He played great for like what he's done this season. He's just like come in, and I think he texted me after the game. He was like, I think first time I've played in every single game. Like that's great as a captain. Like you have to be proud of that. And I was like, dude, like that's crazy. Like you need to be able to play in every single one of these games.
If that's true, that's an alarming stat.
Yeah, like that's crazy first. But second of all, he just comes in and maybe he fouls you every once in a while, but he's gonna come and try
Hey,
so
it's street
hard.
ball. It's street ball.
It's street ball. Like he's gonna jump. He's gonna absolutely battle. In that first game we had with him, I know we're trying to get in this novelty segment, but that first game where he played against Steve, like that's a hard thing to do. Like we were switching screens, like we were telling him to go guard Steve for part of that game, and he did it. He tried his butt off. Like there's nothing else you can do, and I really hope he gets a good rap set for this season.
I think he will. I think his draft stock definitely increased, and obviously that's part to you as well, like giving him the space to do his thing. One thing I love about Pete is that he will go to war for his team no matter what.
Yeah,
and even when you guys won last week, I mean, like he screamed to the heavens as if you had just won it all, and that's the mentality you need. So again, like a huge round of applause to Pete. And Alex, I think that's a huge compliment to you that you played him in every game. Alarming stat if that's true, but it's your responsibility as captain, and no one really talks about it. Like, you're kind of the parent of the team. Like, you have to carry the bandwidth offensively, defensively, scheme wise, rotations, but also the locker room. Like, being a captain is no easy task, and I think you do a great job at all of them.
Yeah, I think that was also the one thing that I think I didn't do enough of was scheme. I think the first couple of games we kind of just went in with no plan, and I think you said that on one of the analyst hours, and I was like, yeah, what am I doing? Like, I got to go into these games and be like, hey, we're up switching that, like we're blitzing that screen, we're not letting Connor shoot a three, like stuff like that. Like it needs to happen to all the captains. Like, and if you're not doing it, you're going to be a step behind.
And last thing I'll say before we go novelty is, like Alex just said, like he used to hang his hat defensively. I like to think going into this draft, like I was obviously a score first kind of player. I think my offense was definitely slacking this year. And that's something we've talked about. I want to work on, et cetera. I thought my defense was fine, but that was mainly because I was guarding like the second or third guy on each team. But fun year, fun team. Whether we run it back or not, this was an awesome time, and we'll see what happens next. But good year for the Phantom, and looking forward to watching playoffs.
For sure.
All right, boys. Now we're into the novelty segment, and I kind of kept you in the dark. All right, can you guys see my screen?
Let's go. Let's go.
I love this.
All right. So as you guys can see, we will be making 3 tier lists.
Lord.
Because I can't title them because they're single use, I will tell you what we're going to be tiering. So let's start. I'm trying to make each a little bit short just so we can get through them. But the first tier we're going to do is best value draft pick. Remember, this is not going to be the best person of these groups, just like the best value for the draft pick. And the way tiers work, don't feel any pressure to put one in each category. They can all be S tier. They can all be D tier. So just something to keep in mind. We don't need to, like, don't feel bad about crowding a specific tier. But let's get into our roster for the first best value draft picks. We're looking at Dan Gurgis, AJ Clark, Louis, Arvin, Luke, Ian, and CJ. These were all at random draw. So I forget what are in the next ones. They could be random. Sorry, they are random, but we could have repeats or whatever. So, Ryan, we're going to start with you. Well, this is going to be collaborative, but give me a take for where you think we should put Dan Gurgis on value draft pick.
And Gurgis went second round.
Second rounder.
I think he's been great. I mean, I think he showed up probably the most out of everyone on his team this year.
For sure.
He obviously, like, he's the reason they beat us that one game. I don't know, like, and he's the reason they've won a lot of their games. I don't think he's been as valuable as AJ. I think AJ is probably in a class of his own. But I'd totally give Dan an A. I think Dan deserves it.
I completely agree.
I agree too. I think I think you've talked about it a couple of times on this program here that we run. That you've thought that Gurgis has been kind of like the vocal leader too. Like, he kind of just tells Nick, hey, maybe show up once in a while and come play with us. So like I think it's gonna be good. I think Gurgis has been really good. I think A is the perfect spot for him.
Yeah, and it's always tough because I think if AJ wasn't in this class, I would give Gurgis the S tier. But because AJ in this class, I think we're all in agreement. Unless Alex, you disagree, I think AJ is an S tier for draft value.
Yeah, he is. He plays great. He knows what he's doing on the court. He came in to that game. They subbed out Owen. Owen was playing fine, but they subbed in AJ. I think they went on like a 6-0 run or something like that to make it 9-7. He's just a great player. He knows what he's doing.
He went like third in the second round is crazy.
Yeah, it was wild.
Yeah, definitely S, unanimous.
Yeah, I agree. Now we have Louis Galligani. I want to take the mic here, and I because I orchestrated this, I want to share. I want to put Louis in the B tier, and the reason because is I think he stepped into the shoes that I paved out for him. I said, if you don't take Louis at 1, I think you're wrong. Obviously, I think he went 3 or 4. But I think he did exactly what we expected him to do, or at least what I expected him to do. He had games where he was better than Costa sometimes, but nevertheless, like, he showed up, was one of the better players every week. He'd be my runaway vote for role player of the year. And even though he is that good, he did exactly what we expected him to do. And for that reason, I think, in terms of value is a high first round pick, and I would put him at B.
I don't know. I think if he had gone at that first overall and had performed the way he did this year, then maybe that would have deserved the B. But the fact that he fell to 4 and performed that way, in my opinion, deserves an A. And especially if we're favoring him as Roll Man of the Year and he fell halfway down the first round, that's what I would say. But Alex, you got the tiebreaker here.
Yeah. Well, oh, and if we all tie goes, we'll round up if we do. We're all kind of.
It's a tough one. I like Louis. I think he plays really well. I honestly like have to compare like the stats to really know what we do here. But just off straight watching them play, I think I'd have to put Louis at A2, just because it's like Cadigan said, he was drafted 4th. He wasn't drafted 1st, and I think that the way that the Legion have made the playoffs, and like you said, they've had a pretty good scheme, and I think he is the number one reason why that scheme is really, really good.
Totally.
All right. Now we have Arvin Nunez. This is a guy who's been kind of steering clear of the criticism this year, but hasn't really shot efficiently as he has in the past. He went in the second round, 5th pick in the round. And I think Arvin has a lot more space to step up defensively and offensively. And, I love him, but I'm an analyst first in this moment. I got to put Arvin in like C or D tier.
Yeah. Alex, you got the baseball
Who's
ties.
going to be brave enough to say?
Yeah, I mean, Arvin's been a teammate. He's a teammate last year with the Pack. He shot it well, and then that one game we played him this year, he didn't miss. He was shot in the first half. He literally did not miss. He had 4 threes or something.
Yeah, the one game he was electric was the
electric against us. Yeah, that's what happens every time too. Someone just goes berserk against us. But I like Arvin a lot. I do think one thing that's underrated about him is his defense. Even though he's a small dude, he's a little buff, so he can stay in front of you well. And the only thing is you can go by him a little easier. But once he gets down the paint, I think he's a really good defender. So I'd probably put him at C. If Cadigan, you want to put him in the D category, that would be tough. But
I don't like being the deciding factor here. I don't know, man. It's hard because like the Black Bears just really underachieved as a team, and I don't think it would be fair for me to put all of that blame on one player or another. I guess with that, if I were to put Arvin in C, I'd have to put Luke in the C as well. Even though I think Luke kind of underperformed this year. I don't know how much of that was him versus the minutes he was getting. I don't really know what it was. Yeah, he was struggling with injuries. I'm not sure. So
true, he was battling lots of injuries.
I think I definitely give Arvin a C because he shows up. He always gives effort, and like that is something that team needs. And even though his shooting would go cold for spells of the season, I think he provided enough to keep him out of the D. I think D is kind of harsh. Luke is tough because he didn't do much this year. And I don't know how much of that I want to put on him versus the team versus the situation. I don't know. I don't know. Like, and for reference, like if I were on this list, I'd probably put myself at like a B or C. So like, and that was just like with the reference of me being first overall. So I don't want this to seem like I'm like shitting on anyone, but
dude, you're not shitting on anyone. Like,
I'd probably give Luke, I don't know, man. I'll give him a C. I'll give him a C.
All right.
But well, other people need to answer before we put him on the board.
No, I agree. I mean, when you are drafted 4th in the last round, you don't have a ton of expectations. So it's really easy to be an S, but it's also very hard to be a D. Like he doesn't get a ton of minutes. Was battled with a lot of injuries, but I think because of the weight loss, we put a lot of expectations on him this year to be a far more mobile, far more agile player, and he just wasn't that. And again, this is not an attack this is not an attack or real praise at any of these guys' skill. It's what they gave us versus what a captain spent on them. So that's really where it lies. This is not really a critique or anything. It's just like, that's really what it was. So I don't think Luke at a C or Arvin at C is is one mean, but I don't think it's crazy either.
Alex, thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. I think I didn't watch a lot because I was watching that Dogs versus Hoopers game, but the Black Bears and Legion game where Luke was playing, I thought he was playing all right. He was looking a little hesitant. Like I think I saw one or two times he had the ball at the free throw line and just kind of didn't want to shoot it. And a lot of the pump fakes, I think you just got to be like ready to shoot when those situations come, especially when your captain's out and you're on the floor. I think I always praise Pete for that because again, like you said earlier, Boo's got a little trigger finger on him, but he's ready to shoot when he gets the time to come in, and that can help your team a lot. So I think maybe that's just something for him to improve on next year.
And I got a quick question before, and I don't want anyone to say any names because I don't want to solo people out if they're not on the list. But like, can you guys think, this can be yes or no, but like, can you think of anyone in the league that you would give a D rating to for this?
Oh, what a
Start?
good question.
And again, you don't need to solo out any names, but it's just yes or no. And if not, then that's a
No, I'm
reflection.
gonna say no. And I don't think that I don't think I'm, even though that's an opinion, I think no is the only appropriate answer. Like you don't see a fourth man going first, like we all kind of know where we lie.
Yeah.
Unless your idea is me, then I'd feel like such an idiot for saying that.
No, no, no.
Yeah, we put Regan in the D category real
That'd be
quick.
crazy.
but
But
yeah,
I guess conversely to that, and you just said the fourth man and like the different expectations, this may be a good segue. I think Ian definitely deserves an A. I think you
yes.
securing the 2-0 record without Colin totally validates that. I don't think there, much more needs to be said. He's definitely the overwhelming favorite for fourth man of the year.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, Ryan.
I think you
great.
go Regan.
Well, I was just gonna say real quick, like again, like I don't want people to see this be like, yo, you think Ian's as good as Louis? It's like, no one's saying that. But in terms of what Colin spent on him versus what the Thunderbirds got out of Ian, I think he
For
said it
sure.
himself. I think he's the runaway favorite for fourth man of the year. The stats back it up. And also, being part of the equation when the Thunderbirds went 2-0 without Colin, I think one of the better return on investments Ian has ever been a part of. I think A is very appropriate.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think if you had to ask me if there's one player that I really want to play with that isn't like a captain or a really good player, I think it'd be Ian. I think we actually played Y ball together the year, I think my junior year of high school. And I always thought he was like he had decent IQ and he's bigger for this league, so you can kind of put him as a big man. So I think he's a decent player, and I think it'd be really fun to play with him. I can't remember that year, the COVID year, if he was on my team. I know it was me and Sam, but I thought it was also Ian and
I can
Owen.
tell you
But
right
I
now.
I, I couldn't I couldn't tell you. I might be wrong, but I can't remember who the other two people were on my team. That was so
I
long
remember
ago.
you were like, oh, like I want someone who insert whatever you said, and then you picked Ian, and then we all laughed just because we all make fun of Ian.
damn.
Yeah, so I think I did take Ian for that team. So yeah, I think he's also someone I'd love to play with.
I hope Colin at some point like stops taking him because I also would love to play with Ian and he's kind of cemented himself as part of Colin's franchise, but I hope that gets disbanded at some point. Whether you guys win or lose, I hope you find a reason in him maybe moving off from someone else because I'd love to play with Ian.
Yeah, he's a great teammate. Still looking for it, Alex, but I guess we're past it now. But yeah, I think Ian and A is very appropriate. I'll kick us off with CJ. I'm gonna vote CJ for B. I think he did exactly what we kind of expected him to. I think he went last in the second round. So
First
like
and third.
he went first in the third.
I know it was back to back, but I did take note of that because I was high on CJ as a second round pick, which is why I'd probably, if he ended up going second round, I may have like put him a little not lower, but
Second. I wish I could show you, but second, it won't show you. He went eighth to the Dogs. I promise.
Who
I
did?
wish I could show you, but this thing won't allow me. But he went eighth to the Dogs in the second
CJ?
round. In the second round, yes, he was not a third round pick. I promise.
Well then,
Yeah, Baraldi was the third round pick.
Baldy,
I
yeah, it was
guess
back to back. Steven
I
said
guess
it's
B is still fair. I mean, yeah, same thing, but I guess B is still fair. I don't know. I was hoping he would not hoping, but I thought he was going to start this year in
Y'all
The
were,
fact
yeah.
he didn't probably took him out of the S and A range, but I thought he did everything that was asked from him as a fourth man and like spot starter. So I think B is totally fair.
Right.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you saying. He also drove me to every game, so I could probably put him at like A. Not every game, but he drove me to like 2 or 3 games, so I'll put him
A-tier
at A.
teammate. It's great.
Yeah, A-tier teammate. He's a great dude too. So
CJ's awesome.
All right, guys, we're done with the boring stuff. We have 2 tiers left. You know, the first cheekier than the last. So we're gonna get into the next one. What we have here, the category is best locker room presence. This is the guy you want to crack a beer with
Oh,
after the game. Um, you know, someone you don't mind sharing a pint with, and just talking about life, shooting the shit. Someone you want in the group chat, someone you want in the timeout huddle. So we're gonna kick things off. Here we have the roster again, random draw. Luckily, I think we only have one repeat, and that's Dan Gergis.
yes, I wish he was on this D. Put Gergis in the D.
So
No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I would never.
we can start kicking things off. All right, so here we have starting off with Owen Bullinger. Owen is not really a talkative guy, so I think S and A are excluded. I have not played alongside him, so I think it'd be wrong to throw him in D and drag his name through the mud like that. So my vote would be C by default. Am I crazy
yeah.
for saying that?
I think if I knew Owen better, it'd probably be higher. I don't know Owen too well. I'd put him in B or C just because he seems really cool. Wait, I forget, what is this, like the vibes guy, locker room
This
guy?
locker room presence.
Locker room presence would probably be C then, just because I don't hear him talk much. Which actually, that sounds judgmental because people who don't talk much can be higher. But
he's honestly, I grew up with him, so he's one of my favorite dudes, dude. He's quiet, but once you start to get to know him, he starts talking, and he's really funny.
I
dude.
get that impression, so
He's very, very
I would
funny.
put him in D.
And I think I had him on 2 straight teams. I didn't have him this year, but I would, if he was there at fourth man, I would take him every time. He's a great kid. He's gonna try to show up, so I'd probably put him at B.
Perfect.
I
Yeah, I just don't know him, so I don't really have a leg to stand on.
Yeah, he's the Woodhill.
love the Woodhill kids.
All right.
That sounded sarcastic.
I don't know. I don't know Woodhill kids like that.
You guys are kind of on your own island.
Yeah, exactly. That's why.
But now we have one, and I have to say, there are 2 guys on this list who popped up that I was so excited to see popped up, and Dan Gergis is one of them. I felt gods were with me when I spun this random wheel, because I don't know what captains or what players think of Dan Gergis in the locker room, because I can see people who love having him on their side, or I could see guys who are like, dude, shut up. Can you stop chirping people for 1 second?
Yeah, dude.
So what is it?
This could go anywhere depending on who you ask, which is why the default vote would probably be B.
Yeah, there's nobody like him. There's nobody like him in the league.
He's one of one.
One of one.
He's gonna talk. He's gonna talk his head off no matter what the situation is. I think sometimes he's a little scared of me, which is funny. Like whenever I guard him, he gets a little scared. So that always makes me laugh. But then again, he hit 5 threes against us when I was playing no defense. So, but I think he's a good vibes guy to have on your team. I think you probably don't want him on the other team, honestly.
Yeah.
So I put him in the same spot as Belanger. I think he would probably stay right around there. B, he's good, but he also could have those moments where like you're like, bro, please just shut up.
Yeah, I think he's a guy where, like, again, you don't like to play. You don't want him at your game when you're playing. But if I'm cracking a beer Sunday night, reflecting on ASL, like, and he's at my table, like, I would love, I love shooting the shit with Gergis. So I don't think, like, he's hilarious at times. So it is great, especially him and Michael's banter always puts a smile on my face. So I think B isn't a crazy take either. Now we have Beraldi, and I think Beraldi is a responsive, reliable an incredibly chill guy, and he hosts the banquet every year. I think anything but S is a crime.
Yeah, we can't do him dirty like that.
Yeah.
That's cool. That said, we got our boy next.
Yeah, D
Yeah.
Tavares.
I
I
wanted to
also
play with
think-
Dennis my whole career, and I'll tell you what, I got to play with him this year, and it was everything you could want, and then some. The team vibe was great. Dennis is obviously a vibes guy. Anything,
Yeah, I think
anything less than S is a crime.
I drafted Dennis for the vibes straightly and the
Always.
defense. And the one thing that I will say is after the Thunderbirds game, Cadigan didn't say a word to me. He left right away. Stylos we know where he was. And Tavares is sitting next to me, and I was like, oh, he's the only guy that's kind of like he doesn't care as much as those two. So like, because they care an extremely amount. Not to say like Dennis doesn't care, but he goes, dude, I hate Colin so much. I cannot deal with his pump fakes. He's gonna get me hurt. Like I was like, Dennis, you cannot be doing this. You're my vibes guy. Like you cannot be mad right now. So that was funny, but I'd put him at A or S easily.
Yeah, I think Dennis is S as well. He's just one of those guys who's just so easy to get along with. Always has something
Exactly.
nice to say, and he's like very like warm. Like it's not easy to win Dennis over. He'll always tell you what he appreciates about you. He's always there to crack a joke. Like that's a guy you wanna hang out with after ASL. So
Totally.
Exactly.
I gotta vote S. I hate that I got picked. I was thinking of taking myself out just because it's like awkward. But we can skip myself.
Well,
I
nah,
won't
well,
weigh in. I think that's cheap nonsense. But
I'll take this to start because I've played with you, and obviously have played against you, and you guys drive me crazy when you're on Colin's team because you guys are
Insane.
so like interconnected, which is so great for the team level, but like to the competitors, it's like, damn, these guys are annoying as hell right now. Like,
guys are just nut sniffers.
but you're also commish, and like I mean, you're one of my boys, so like I would say S, but I think to the league, I think you should be probably an A. I think is fair in between these because you're definitely unproblematic, and I want this to turn into like an Andrew Glaze fest, but like you're chill, you're a good teammate, and like you're good talking to other teams as well. I think A is where I would put you, but Alex, you would have a better idea of the perception of him from those who haven't played with Andrew before.
Yeah, I haven't played with him, but I also this year I very much thought about drafting him. I think he was my second choice behind Dennis.
Yeah.
Or at that point, I think I texted Cadigan that. I think I said that on the Zoom. And I think the main reason is because A, you play really good defense and you know how basketball works, and you're a vibes guy. You're 100% a vibes guy. Like
Exactly.
there's no question about it.
Like blushing, but like I'm also like this is so corny. Like I hate
This is corny, but this is corny, but like listen to like what you're down 20-12 against us, and you and Ian are freaking. Oh, we got this. We're only down 20-12. Like we still got a chance this game.
Come
Me and
on,
Cadigan
let's
are looking at
go.
each
I'm
other
like, yeah,
shut up.
yeah, they are saying that.
we got
Like,
this.
shut up. Like there's no
Come
chance
on.
we have a chance in this game.
Go,
And
Cat.
guess what? They beat us. They beat us because you guys ran some stupid play with Dennis in it. Like got Dennis on 2 screens and Colin was wide open for 3, and that was something that we've never ran a play in our lives. So like that was pretty cool to see. And I was like, yeah, after that, you guys are winning this game. But I would 100% put you at A on the basketball court and off the basketball court.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. I'm looking forward to the comments shitting on me. I appreciate it though. I hope you didn't feel any pressure to take me to keep me away from D or C, but I appreciate it nonetheless. Now we got Germano. I love Germano.
Yeah,
I think
he's
one of
got
the
to
most
be S tier.
unanimously like loved guys in the league. He's a guy who shows up, always has a good sense of humor on him. I think S is also an appropriate placement for Germano.
Nothing else to say about it.
Yeah, he's the cable guy on and off the court.
Yeah, their class. Then we got Michael, which I think was a really exciting one to have because he's a very well liked guy. I don't really want to take the helm here because I see him every day, talk to him about ASL every day. Like, I would have the most biased opinion on Michael. So, Ryan, you've played alongside him a few times. Like, why don't you kick it off?
Michael and I have an interesting relationship in ASL. When we were on Lizards together, it was week 1. It was a close game. I didn't play him that game, and I wasn't really thinking of it too much during that week. But then I felt horrible after because he was like, you didn't play me. I really wanted to play. I tried to check myself in
Requested a trade.
and he requested a trade. So like,
Oh my God.
that was hard for me as a captain. Like,
But I can't let this go without saying he requested a trade with the preferred destination of Stephen Shaw's team, but he would settle for Collins' team. He said.
He was like,
so I'll say this though, like I think that made us that much closer. Michael to this day is like my favorite fourth man ever. I love playing with Michael. We have a ring together. He would be an S to me, but I don't know how others would perceive him. Michael can definitely be critical both of other teams and his own team, which may rub some people the wrong way, but with me, MG always gets an S with me, but that could be different to the league. So I'd like to hear Alex's side as well.
I think it's tough when you see him on Analyst Hour every week. Like people always bring up that he has these takes, and it's just like I think he's just doing what he's asked to do. Like I don't think it's really a big deal. But I'm kind of like in the same boat with what you guys were with like Owen. Like I don't know Michael that well. I know he's never on my team, so like I can't really speak to it. But I would say what I have seen is that he's always going to be there and he's always going to try to help the team in any way. And I would love to get a beer with him after the game. I think that would be something that would be a good time. So I would put him at B or A probably.
Yeah,
That's fair.
you say something funny. I literally grab a beer with Michael at the end of every game. We rip some Keno together at our local pub. More often than not on Sunday nights just to shoot the shit and banter. But I think the really cool thing about Michael, and Ryan can definitely attest to this, is he always puts the team first. Whatever his role may look like, he will put the team first. He's a guy to check himself out if he feels like he's being mismatched. And he shows up. He's the first guy to run plays or suggest plays. So I think he's a really good guy to have, especially as a fourth man. So, I mean, I know you don't play with him too often. I think B is a little low. Is he in the Dennis, Nick Germano, Tyler Beraldi tier of teammates? Pretty close, but maybe not. Ryan, where'd you put him?
Yeah, I think. Well, in my personal opinion, it's S. But I totally understand what Alex is coming from. Is like he probably has the same relationship with MG that we do with Owen. So like, I don't want to take any of that for granted. So I think a B would be fair, or B or higher for me would be I think objectively fair.
You said
I think
S.
A is perfect. I think
I
A is
said
perfect.
A. Alex said B. So we'll give him A.
Yeah,
I think A is
All right, great. And now our last cheekiest one.
let's go.
This tier list is guys you want or wouldn't want to date your daughter.
Oh, that's great.
Let's get into the roster. I actually
Curtis on this list again.
who's on this roster.
No, that's funny.
Okay.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
We're gonna start off with Pistol Pete Stylos. I'll take the helm here.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think Pete is an absolute sweetheart.
Yeah.
But he's demonstrated that he has a little bit of a temper when he gets a little bit overpassionate.
No way.
As much as I think as Pete would treat my daughter like gold, if there's a time where things get a little tense and things get a little overbearing, I don't want her to be in the radius of a pit viper's explosion. However, I think 98% of the time, Pete is pure class and he's just a lovable guy. So I would put him at A.
Yeah, the 2% is a tough 2%. I have to agree with that, but I'd put him at A too. I think he's a great teammate, and I think he would be a decent. I'd put him at B actually. I think he'd be a decent.
Yeah, I was gonna say B. I think I think Pete is the sweetest dude with like the warmest intentions. But if it's my daughter we're talking about here, and I know
Yeah.
of his temper tantrums at times, that would be what would sink it. Even though that's rare, and he improved upon that as the season went on. I think B is fair for this list.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree. I
All
agree.
right.
George has got to be an S, bro.
George
Yeah,
is
George S.
just
tier.
like the
No
most
question about
lovable
it.
guy. Like
George is
No
the
question
man.
about it. George is number one. There's no question about
George
it.
has a job at I think he's at EY or something, or he's at Deloitte or something. You know he's gonna be rolling in. Like he's gonna treat her at every date. You know, he just seems like
His brother too,
cool
another
dude.
beauty. Like the whole family's a beauty. Like
Yeah.
Yeah, good
his
people.
family owns. I think his family. Do they still own the Heavenly Donuts?
Heavenly
Like
Donuts, and he's the hookup.
yeah, yeah.
He's the
So like
plug.
there,
Yes,
you need it,
yes,
need
good.
it, need it.
Love
S tier easy.
All right, now we got Curtin. I think I'm gonna put Curtin at A. Like Curtin is the guy who I feel like would come over to bring my daughter to prom and be like, "I'll have her home at 11:30, sir," and he has her home at 11:29. Like he's
Yes.
just like, he just seems like a real stand-up dude. We haven't seen any like bad sides to him, you know. Like I think A is super appropriate. Is he over the top like a GK would be? Maybe I just haven't seen it, but I feel very confident in placing him at A.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would put him at an S if I if I didn't rate George so highly.
Yeah.
Yeah, if George wasn't here, then he's for sure gonna
Dude,
make
look at
it
his
S.
picture, dude. Like
He's so sweet. George is
he's
the
just the
man.
sweetest.
No,
Yeah, I think A is perfect. I think A is good for Curtin. This list is crazy.
Hilarious,
this
right?
is wild.
The next three are gonna be awesome.
All right.
Now we got Nick Resendez. He's got the aviators in his ASL photo. And I think Nick Resendez is such a harmless dude. You know, I feel like he's never once been ill intention towards someone. He has no blood on his hands ever, it seems like. However, I could totally see a hypothetical daughter being like, I want you to care for my existence more. He's like too chill. You know what I mean? Like, I could totally see my daughter trying to get him jealous and him just like not taking the bait because he's just too chill, you know? And for that reason, I gotta put him at B.
Dude, you got anything, Pissy?
Oh, dude, he's someone I've grown up with too. So it's just like
I'd be scared.
I've heard some things out of his mouth that I should be like, yeah, I'm probably putting him at least C. But
Yeah,
yeah, I love the kid. I love the kid. Like our families know each other and stuff. Like I used to drive his brother to basketball practice. So like I I think I'm gonna put him at C. I love the kid, but I'll put him at C.
All right, Rob, what do you think?
I think C is fair. I think if Nick was dating my daughter, my daughter would never want to see me because they just kind of do their thing, and I wouldn't really have any response or anything to stand on. So I'd be like, "Yeah, man, go for it." So out of me wanting to see my daughter, I'd probably put him at a C. Yeah, that makes sense. Resendez is the man.
All right, now we got CK. I'm gonna put CK in the same class as Curtin. Just like seems like a really classy stand-up guy, wouldn't really hurt a soul. You know, is definitely confident enough to show her the finer things of life, but would never, doesn't seem like he's a guy who backstabs. So like I'm pretty confident in placing him at A. Is he George tier? No, but who is?
Yeah. If George wasn't on this, it'd be different. But
Yeah.
I agree. I think Colin's A. I think he's a great dude. I've also grown up with him, but also same thing like his dad. I know his dad, so I think he's a really good dude. Would I be okay if Colin walked in my house with my daughter? Probably not. But for the hypothetical, I'll put it at A.
All
Yeah,
right.
I kind of have the same rationale for Colin, Jack, and Steve. I'd put them all at an A. They just seem like kind of nicer dudes, and yeah, not much more to say other than I think they're all great.
Yeah, Steve's another one where like
Yeah.
if I saw him walk into my house with my daughter, I'd freak out. But that's just because it's Steve. But it's just yeah. I'll put him at A, but
This is yeah.
same thing.
Yeah.
You could say that for all these
they're
kids
all in the
because
same class. I think they're great dudes, but we
yeah.
have one lone wolf, and that is Luke Pratty. When I saw Luke pop up in this list, I was like, this is going to be a conversation.
Well,
So
he's quite the romantic now. I know.
he is such a lover boy now, and it's
How so? How
been-
so? Explain.
he's just been
Follow
night
him on
and
the
day.
gram, bro.
No,
Do you
I
follow
don't think
him on the
so.
gram?
Maybe.
All right,
That's
so
crazy.
let me paint it out for you. Luke's Instagram, his aesthetic has like his story has been like Joe Burrow hype videos to like UFC promos, just stuff like that. And now he's got his girlfriend, and I feel like I'm with them on every date. And it's just so romantic, like where like he looks like he treats her really well. But
Okay, all right,
is
yeah.
he working at Deloitte? No, he's not working at Deloitte with George. I don't know, he's got a sweet car. I know my daughter would like that. Is that the car? Is that the guy I want my daughter dating? No, ideally. So I don't think I think S is out of the question. I think B and C is out of the question. I think I'm gonna go B. I think I'm gonna go B.
I agree. I'd put him at B right with Stylos.
He's been
He's
like such a
cool.
softie, and it's been so cute to see. It's a side none of us have seen. And I think he treats his girlfriend like gold. But is he working at Deloitte? No. So
Yeah. I'd have a conversation with him, asking him what his intentions are. We'd go
yes.
into a deep conversation, and I think B is cool for now, with room for improvement for sure.
Yes. I agree. I think you put that well. I think Luke's floor is at B, and I don't think he goes any lower than that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we have the list and the tiers of who you would want to date your daughter. Guys, and especially Alex, thank you so much for coming in. I mean, we had a little bit of analytics, we had a little bit of cheeky banter, but it was such a pleasure having you guys on, and stay tuned for the playoffs. Thank you so much, guys.